Hogan came out first with Jimmy Hart. So Jimmy Hart is almost 80 years old. I'm assuming you didn't watch any of this show. Maybe you saw some on Twitter
No,
or something. Jimmy Hart looked like $1,000,000 still, man. Got the dark hair, the dark beard, the sunglasses, still jumping around. Just looked like Jimmy Hart of 40 years ago. Still looked great.
yeah, Jimmy looks the same.
You know, he reminds me of my
bundle of nervous energy.
He reminds me of my Uncle Tom. They still look exactly the same. They kind of look like each other too. But Jimmy Hart, man, love that dude. Get any Jimmy Hart stories, Rip? Did you ever do much with Jimmy? No, Jimmy?
Well, Jimmy rode with me sometimes when I was working for Ole, I think. Jimmy made some trips in the van, so he's sitting in the captain's chair in the back. I'll drive. He'd sit in the back seat on the passenger side in the back there. In the big van, we'd be talking shit, telling stories and stuff. So he's a cool guy, hard worker.
He got in though. Wasn't he in music first, right? Isn't that the story?
Yeah, he was in that song "Keep On Dancing" that I remember when I was a kid, and it was the band called the Gentrys. So he was a legitimate star, you know. Had the one big hit, whatever. Then he had to have the fucking job. And he got the job with Lawler, and he was in Memphis for how long and long and long. And to be anything in the Memphis territory, they bring you in and put you with Jimmy Hart. Then all of a sudden you're elevated. The bad part about it is Jimmy would go out and do every promo. Jimmy would go out and he'd be out there about 5 times a night with 5 different heels. And you get sick of the same act, no matter how good it is. But Memphis always did a thing a little bit different, just like every other territory did. And when you weren't used to seeing it, it was strange. But if you were brought up with that, that's what you were used to. But
yeah, I remember that. Always
hell of a guy. Go ahead.
I remember that. It always seemed like a couple times when things would happen to when him and Lawler would basically call a truce to, get rid of somebody or something. I don't know if one would turn probably Hart would turn babyface or Lawler, however it worked. But you just knew it was just a matter of time before, Hart turned back on Lawler. You knew that relationship wasn't going to last. You just didn't know when it was going to happen.
Well, that kept you watching. That's just like Ole was a bad guy for all these years, and he turned good for about 2 years. Then he turned on Dusty. I think it was a Dusty in the Cage or whatever. Yeah, he said it would never be over. It would never be over. And Ole was a good
awesome
guy, and Dusty needed him for his partner. So Dusty was still ready to make the tag with the Koloff in there, and all of a sudden when Ole was going to make the comeback, he turned around and starts kicking the shit out of the Dream. It was everybody against the Dream. It's almost Riot City and the Omni. Wow. That makes you a wrestling fan forever. Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
I love wrestling.